and friends, welcome to Women Ready to Lead 2030, where we say indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. And of course, today we have the one and only Myrtle Witbooi, the president of the International Federation of Domestic Workers, from whom we're going to ask for directions. Women leaders and friends, she has been leading, blazing the trail to make domestic workers recognized as workers and ensure that they enjoy social justice like all workers should. For 50 years. And today, as part of our Indlela Ibuzwa Kwabaphambili, we ask for directions from those who've gone before. We will be asking her questions. What did it take for her to be this brave? But more importantly, where does she get her resilience? How do you fight for 50 years for a cause that at some stage looked like was not going to be recognized by others? You know, for many years, domestic workers were not even recognized as workers. They didn't enjoy UIF, they didn't enjoy workers' compensation. This is only recently, I think in 2020, that the Constitutional Court in Mahlangu versus Minister of Labour insisted that domestic workers must be recognized as workers, must enjoy social justice like everyone else, and that we have to understand that these are workers and human beings whose lives exist at the axis of many interlocking oppressions. But yes, here she is, having started as a domestic worker herself and now leading, not just here in South Africa, but globally. Greetings, CC, Myrtle Witbooi, and welcome to Women Ready to Lead. What a joy it is to host you today, ma'am.
Good day, and it's my pleasure being here. I feel honored to be here today and to share my story with some of your listeners. And I hope that it will encourage them on the way forward to where we are now in a very strange world of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Absolutely, ma'am. That's another thing that we would be asking about. How have you and your constituency been able to continue to blaze a trail through the challenges of COVID-19? But let's start at the beginning, because when we're going to ask for directions, we're going to ask for direction for how you've led successfully and enduringly throughout your life. Tell us a bit about your earliest recollection and any life storms that may have been part of that, to just get a sense of where do you get these strong roots that anchor you as a leader?
I think, you have to, if you really want to say, where do I get it? I think I have to look at, where do I come from? And how did I get where I am? I was born in, a little mission station. It's called Genatendal. And it was one of the first mission stations. And of course, in the mission stations, we were controlled by the Dutch and of course by the Bible. And we were sort of very religious. And I had a normal childhood. I only discovered, though, when I was 12 years old, that I was adopted by my parents that I'm staying with, too elderly. They were 50 when they adopted me. Of course, I never realized it and I never knew about it. But when I was 12 years old, I discovered this, with a lovely lady coming to her Martindale, coming to say hello to me. And obviously, I was looking at this lady and thought, oh, well, we are 12-year-old. You look so familiar. But anyway, when I went back home, questions started coming through my brain. And then I asked my parents, and of course, they said to me, I am adopted. But it never actually made any impact on me. I didn't ask questions. I didn't ask anything. I just carried on with my life. I just accept my parents that I have because I had a very good life. And what also happened in that mission station, my father used to disappear on a Sunday. And I was very curious, in Genatendal, where do they disappear to? And when I asked my father, he said, well, that is not for children to know. But also there was a Reverend Alster, I'm sure you heard about them. They were part of the struggle of many years ago. And actually he had a birthday party and he was not allowed to sit in the house. And even that went into my brain, but not realizing that at a later point in my life, that will come to the forefront. I would get that in my mind what happened. But what happened in the mission station, we all had to finish school. It was important. And those years, you must pass grade 10. You're either going to become a nurse or you're going to become a teacher. That was the only choice you had. But of course, you get involved, you leave school. And then, of course, I left school in grade 10 to come to Cape Town. And for us, Cape Town was like the streets was the golden pavements. If you come to Cape Town, oh, wow, it's going to be one of your greatest. And that is where reality started taking effect of my life. That when I want to go and do anything, I find myself that I was like not registered as something. I was registered as, in that state, they call it not white, ni blanca. It was all different things. And then they said, I have to re-register myself. And I applied for this. And I actually had a 2-year waiting period to say, what am I now? And because of that, I was restricted from entering anything. I managed to finish my grade 10, but I couldn't do anything because I don't know where I am. As you know, in the apartheid years, we were in Afrikaans, it was actually the word hot not, or you had an ugly word to describe us. And what happened? I end up with this family, and that is where I end up with this family. They had a 2-year-old daughter that was badly burned, and they asked me if I can't look after this child. And that is where my life really started to take over and a different life enter, because I did not realize at that stage what domestic work was all about. I did not realize that now I'm going to be dehumanized. I'm not going to be recognized as a woman. And I was simply just somebody cleaning somebody else's life. And that is where I start to think. And that is where, and the one thing that stood out is when I entered this house, when I grow up in Genatendal, I had no idea of these Black people. I'm saying to you now like that because the apartheid years. I didn't know that if you're Black, because in Genatendal, we were all colors and we were all just colors. So when I come to Cape Town and I enter this house, this white people's house, like they call it that time, there was a Black lady and I couldn't understand. And she said to me, she is from the Transkei and she was born on a mission station and she can speak Afrikaans. And of course, that was to me. But I said to her, but I don't understand Matilda. We call her Matilda. And she said, no, her real name is Natombi, but they also been given names. And then what happened is she gets a letter and she put this letter in her pocket. And I could not understand. I'm not sure if you know, but if you're a domestic worker and you get a letter, oh, you want to open that letter because at some point it's just from your family. Of course, that time we did not have this post office that we have now. We have post office delivering twice a week. And I asked her, can I see your letter? And she said, yes, sure. And I opened the letter for her. The letter was actually very sad. And something snapped in me. And I said, Matilda, but why can't you read? And she said, I don't know because I had to come and work. I said, okay. But she said to me, but why are you different? Your color, you got everything, you can read and write. I said, I don't know, Matilda. Maybe we have to start thinking. She ran out of the house and she went to tell other domestic workers, yes, a very clever domestic worker in this house. Come. And for me, I wasn't clever. I was just asking a question. Why can't you read? Because I come from a mission station. And right there, I start questioning this evil system that's been degrading us. Right there, my questions start. Why? And what happened is, there's an article in the newspaper. The article in the newspaper said domestic servant stole food in the house to give to her boyfriend that she hid in the back room. I don't know what happened that day. If I have to say to you and say to you really what happened, I don't know. Something exploded in me. I took a pen and paper. I wrote to this newspaper. That time the newspapers was also, we had a black newspaper, we had a colored newspaper. So this colored newspaper was running the story. I wrote a letter and I said, so who are we? Why do you say that we are not allowed to do this and that? I want to understand. And this, I will never forget it. Up till today, I'm in contact with this guy. He came to the door 3 days later. He knocked on the door. Another thing that knocked me. He knocked on the door, and I'm sorry that I must refer to color naturally, but that is how it happened in that time. This colored guy, arrogant colored guy. Excuse me, I'm looking for the maid. I said, no maid here. Excuse me, I'm looking for a domestic servant. I said, sorry, there's no servant. Who are you looking for? And she got a name. And my employer come down, the person, and she asked me, who? I said, they're looking for maid, nannies, anybody. And I said, what's her name? He said, Myrtle. I said, okay, I'm Myrtle. But you thought, my own people, when you come to this store, you're going to see a person that's going to bow down in front of you and that's going to say, oh, sir, who are you looking for? I'm sorry, sir. This is me. What do you want? And he said, oh, did you write that letter? I said, okay, so what? I wrote a letter. Why do you think I can't speak English? Do you think I don't understand English? I said, don't underestimate us. I don't know where I get the words from. I don't know. Maybe they, upstairs there, God was watching me. He was shocked. And he said, we have to do something. We have to do something with what you've got in you. You have to let it get out. I said, thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. So where to now? And he said to me, okay, let's call a meeting. I said, what is a meeting? Now you must understand, I'm here, domestic worker here. This man is talking about a meeting. I said, excuse me, what is a meeting? He said, well, I'm going to advertise for domestic workers, like you say, workers to come to this meeting. At that time, we had a tri-caramel party with Jack Heater, the colors have their own little thing. And he said, okay, you can have this hall. It's still standing today. That night, I walk into a hall with 250 domestic workers. Now you have to understand, I'm a domestic worker. I walked into this hall, I saw cookies, I saw aprons, I saw everything, and I'm walking, I was actually shivering. I didn't know what to expect. I walked to a microphone on the stage. Oh my word. What is that? Oh, you must speak, Myrtle. I said, oh my God, he wrote a speech for me, what I must say. I don't know what happened that day also in my life. I pushed the speech one side. I opened and I said, today, I want to speak to you. I'm a domestic worker, just like you. And in domestic work, there is no color. If I must scrub the floor, you must scrub the floor. If I must wear an overall, you wear an overall. We never look at each other on color. We look at each other as domestic workers. And that is where I discovered something in myself. Something that wants to fight against us. That is happening to us. Something that's saying to us, you're voiceless. You are nothing. You are just somebody cleaning somebody's house. And that is when I start. And in that meeting, there was a woman, our story caller, Maggie Uwe. She couldn't read and write. And up till today, she still can't read and write. And she stood up and she said, Myrtle, we were waiting for you. You are like you've been sent here. For me, it was not about waiting for me. For me, it was the injustice to us. You know, if you get paid as a domestic worker, you have to open your hand and you have to clap and you have to say thank you. Why do I have to degrade myself like that? And something was not, I wasn't getting angry, but I need answers from our government. Politics. I was thinking about politics, people talking about politics, and then one day somebody say, Myrtle, just because you're a domestic worker is about politics. It's about domestic work. It's about you, Black women, doing that work. But should it just be we Black women doing that work? Shouldn't it be something else? Shouldn't we be appreciated? And my struggles start there. My struggles start. I start to rebel again. And then one day, that's, 1994, as you all know, democratic elections. Where do we stand as domestic workers? I had the honor of meeting that time Thabo Mbeki. I had the honor of meeting Thabo. I had the honor of going to Lusaka. All they say to me, Mama, you must go back. You must educate domestic workers. That's what they say. When we promise when we come back, wow, you're going to see great changes. No, sorry, 1994 come. We had to stand up ourselves. We had to chain ourselves to the gates of Parliament to ask them, listen to the voice of the workers. The first time that after that, trying ourselves to the gates, because we were fighting for unemployment fund benefits, I was invited for the first time in my life to go and speak in Parliament. I'll never forget it. The Monday I took domestic workers with me. When I entered that Parliament, the emotions that went through us. The domestic workers say, Myrtle, we didn't walk. We were on top of that red carpet. We were like soaring to the front. Sitting in front, looking at all those ministers, Trevor Mann, Kader Asma, all of them. And I had a 10-page book that I had to tell them my story now. I put that book one side, and I'll never forget my words. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say to you, honorable ministers, today. I'm sorry. I'm going to say to you, you hold my hand in the struggle. We were singing. We were purple sprayed. We were locked up. Why today you want me to come back in front of you to recognize us? Sorry, we want what you've got. And if you're not going to give it to us, sorry, we have to stay in this beautiful room with the carpet and the nice food. You'll stay here, but you're going to answer us. That day again, I discovered something in me, something that say, stop. This must stop. We are women. We are mothers. We are wives. And they turn around and they say, like they all call us, Comrade Myrtle, you make us ashamed of apartheid. You really make us ashamed. I said, no, I don't want you to be ashamed of apartheid. I want you to honor what you have promised us. I want you to honor. As we walk out there, they say there was a misprint in the government that said it will take another 2 years. As we walk up, the very woman, sorry to say to you today, the ANC Women's League, that never support us, never came to say midnight by us, never came to hold our hands, screaming outside, Myrtle, we won. The word that they say, we won. I say, who won? We, Myrtle, we won. You've got the unemployment fund. I said, wow, you won. Where were you when we were crying midnight last night at the gates? Where were you with people bringing us food? And that is the reality of our life. That is where I am now today. I keep on. We've got labor law after labor law. I moved up. I bring domestic workers out of that feeling sorry for themselves. And yes, you do short courses, you do courses how to be a feminist, what is a feminist, how to be a woman. But up to today, Professor Thuli, do we do we as domestic workers? We are far in this world today. Do we really get the recognition that we really deserve? Yes, we've got a minimum wage now, national minimum wage. We've got all the labor laws. We've got a big international women federation in the world run by women. But in my own country, South Africa, have we as domestic workers ever on Women's Day, domestic workers been honored? On other days, have we ever been invited? Have we ever been asked, do come, domestic workers, tell us what you want, tell us your story. And that is still not here for us in our country. The minimum wage that they're giving to us. A domestic worker, she works for a family, she's a single mother. What does she do with 3,800 rand? Yes. So the struggle is far from over. Yes, I've reached my age. I am over the age of pension, but the struggle is not finished. And so for me, it means that where to now? What is the next step for domestic workers in this world? What do we want? We want recognition from you as women. Like you took the first step, and I admire you and I salute you that I am able to be today on our show, a show that reflects to us as women. But what about the masses of domestic workers that's out of there? What about their voices? You know, we find ourselves 2.5 years ago, we find ourselves brought down. We found our minds going blank, COVID-19. We found ourselves isolated. We found ourselves devoid of technology. We find ourselves lost as domestic workers. What are we going to do as domestic workers? We don't know technology. Our cell phones was used. Hello, madam. Hello, master. I'm coming in now. Hello, Myrtle. Can you work overtime? That was a cell phone. It was to say hello. You find yourself, there's a solidarity fund. Yes, if you are registered for unemployment fund, you can. What do you find yourself? You have to go online. Oh, my word. What do I know of online? And when I'm speaking to what do I know, I'm speaking about domestic workers. I'm speaking about them, yes, that maybe I and the organizers, we know. Yeah, we said, but, phone calls after phone calls. Comrade Myrtle, we are hungry. Comrade Myrtle, our children are suffering. What do? We start looking at people assisting us. We start our own crowdfunding. At least we could assist 250 domestic workers with at least a voucher. But truthfully, when you have a phone call from a worker to say, Myrtle, can I just buy a packet of biscuits? Can I just buy a packet of sweets? I asked, why do you ask me? No, because we don't want to be honest about this 500 rand that you're giving us. We go onto the web line. You want to put in domestic workers, you find that you are now number 50. Now, how does a domestic worker with a cell phone with 10 rand data on go onto this online and find out she's number 20? So we were stuck in a world of technology, in a world where we are lost. Slowly but surely, we rebuild ourselves because we are strong women. Domestic workers come out of that hole and they say, let's go forward. Let us rebuild ourselves. We start our own little projects where domestic workers start sewing, domestic workers start selling and say, let us do that. Let us not feel sorry for ourselves. 250,000 domestic workers lost their job. 26,000 domestic workers got a fund. Why? Because the employers didn't register them. So what happened to the employers? A warning. That's it. You get a warning. You have to register your domestic worker now. All of a sudden, we get involved in the 350 grand. Oh, you must apply. Again, I have 10 rand on my phone. I have 20 rand on my phone. You're telling me I must apply. So that is the obstacles we're facing. But the problem that we're having, employers doesn't support us. You know, professional women in that government, they don't support us. The government ignore us. All they say to us, oh yes, you've got labor laws now. Where is the humanity in the labor law that they have developed? It's simply a labor law. Be happy. You've got everything now. But we want labor laws that work for us. They totally ignoring the language barrier. How does domestic workers understand that labor laws that is still in the language of the employer? How do they understand it? So you typically you have to translate. You have to be strong. You have to. Today I have a lot of strong workers, domestic workers. We start digital training for domestic workers. 90 domestic workers are learning how to go online, how to access, you know. So that is where we are. We are in a struggle to get recognition as women. Our work is decent work. But please stay in your home. Give us recognition that our work contributes to the economy. And that is my life. That is my life. 54 years of my life. I've been involved in this struggle. I've never stopped. I've never, you know, there was one thing you asked me on this question. How do I relax? And I was trying to think. You know, when you relax, yes, all of a sudden something comes to your brain, but wait, I must do that. There's another thing they also say, what book? The books. I've read many books, even books coming out by all of you. I love reading. And why do I love reading? For us that could read, that was our escape in the little back room where we're sitting. We get a book. We get you know, anything that we can read because we have to bring the hours. That time there was no TV. There was a small portable radio that we listened to. And then when we iron at night, we listened to the radio and the book. No, it was not really the books. It was the stories, the suffering. Because when I walk out by my gate and I hear another story of a domestic worker, not a story, a real life, what's happening to them. Myrtle, I haven't seen my family. Oh, Myrtle, I haven't did this. You know, my eldest daughter, she was a month old. I had to take her to my mother. When she was 10 years old, I could bring her back. In the middle of the night, they throw my husband out and they throw my child out because it's the group areas, Myrtle. You cannot stay in a white area. You can work here, yes, but your husband and your child can't stay here. I was not prepared to have another child being isolated from me. No ways. And slowly but surely, we part very nicely, but the spirit and the fight remain. Today, in a way, I'm grateful to that employer that she has allowed me to speak up. She allowed me a telephone, she allowed me a garage, and she has supported me all the way. But also, she had me for never having holidays because you know that time, and the joke is that time when it was holiday time, my employer said, you know, Myrtle, we're going overseas, and I used to ask, what is overseas? And when she showed me this plane, I was looking at this plane, not thought that one day I'm going to be on that plane, but I'm going to be on that plane to fight for workers' rights. I'm going to go to Geneva. I'm going to go to the ILO with a plane, but I'm going there to fight for us. And you know, the greatest experience in that ILO, it was that 127 governments had to listen to me, listen to a domestic worker telling them, this is what we want. We want recognition as domestic workers. And that day, 2011, the 16th of June, we've got international freedom. We've got recognition as our work is decent work. But looking back, how many governments have honored this Convention 189 for domestic workers? Why? because we are still not important. So 55 governments. South Africa is one of the governments, fine. But what are they doing about this 189? Are they using it to help us? Are they using it to? The domestic workers said to me, this year is the 9th, it's Women's Day. For 10 years, we've been asking them, please, please allow us just to say and be part of Women's Day. Will they allow us this year to be part of Women's Day? Will they allow us this year to just listen to us? We don't want to complain. We finish crying. Our heart is empty. You know, there's a book out. It's called Labor Pains for the Nation. The book is by the Human Rights Media Center. In that book, there's 8 of us, 8 women in that book. And that book, 8 of us, that women are normal women that never got recognition. We didn't want it. We just want people to know our story. And in that book, my story was called The White Apron. And why was my story called The White Apron? You know, Thuli, when we work for Jewish people, I was one of them, on a Friday night, you put on a white apron, you put on a white lovely thing here, because 9 o'clock when they come from shul, you must go stand by the table while they lit the candles and all that. Then you excuse yourself, you go to the kitchen. You sit in the kitchen, it's 11 o'clock. You're thinking about your families. You take that apron, you start rubbing your face because the tears is running. And you take that apron, you put it back. Tomorrow morning, you just straighten that apron. You come back with that apron into the kitchen. Your tears of last night is still on that apron. And that is why my story was The White Apron. Because the white apron reminds us so much of our story and how we had to stand and serve them the beautiful food. And sometimes we were denied that beautiful food. Cooked by us, lovely. But go back and they buy us the cheapest meat or our pots and our stuff is on the outside door and we must wash it outside and we must not bring it inside. Many of us, up till today, you still find some of that employers. Up to today, you still find employers that is calling us maids and nannies and servants. So how can my struggle be over? No. It's not over. And as long as the Lord above is giving me the strength, I'll try my best. I've been trying to step down many times. I've been called back internationally and been called back also in my own country in Satsao. Not because of, oh, you are something, it's because I've been there. And I still with them. That's how. It's not about, funds. That's how it's not about finances. That's how the Domestic Workers Union, the International Domestic Workers Union, is not about investments. Because if we look today of how investments is destroying unions, it's destroying workers, I'm glad. I'm glad that I've never got used to a lifestyle above domestic workers. I'm glad that all of us serving the domestic workers in my organization, we are with the domestic workers. It's not about riches. It's about our struggle and our unity. And as long as I can still do it, and as long as I still have this voice, it sometimes becomes very emotional. It sometimes becomes sad. But, I don't know if you've seen lately now, there's a new thing happening. In the employees' houses, we are looking after dogs. And in the beginning, the dogs love us. And all of a sudden, the dogs started attacking us. And all of a sudden, for the last 2-3 months, we have 5 domestic workers that have been bitten by the lovely dogs. The one employer said to me that maybe Myrtle, when she was shaking the washing, the dog thought that she's doing something to the baby and he attacked. That asked me, what do you train your dogs? How you train them? She's been working there. She's been badly bitten. She went back to work. My other domestic worker in Port Elizabeth, he's been off work. So our campaign now is that loving dog that we take a dog for walks sometimes. We must go, in Seapoint, you see us walking with the dog. All of a sudden they turn against us now. Why? What is it that's going wrong for us now? So all we want is treat our work as decent work. Our president, vice president before, I said, Pumshila, she used to say one day to us when she was still in South Africa, you are home executives. And the workers said, oh, we love that word. And she said, yes, you must get recognition from us. Okay, it ended. It ended and it's still there. So my message is here, just accept us. When we have, a campaign, when we fight for our rights as women, today, our children are still scattered. Some of our children don't even know us. Some of our children can't stay with us because it is going to make an effect on my employer's children, or I can't afford the schooling in Seapoint to send my child to. So all we say is, assist us, help us, accept us for what we are. We never had the opportunity to go study further, but our brains are developed and our hands are developed to do your work. And we are human beings. So that is my story to you. That is who I am. And,
wow.
And I hope that I will remain this way. That I always, one day they asked me, why don't you go in parliament? Somebody of the ANC, I said, to do what? What must I go and do in parliament? There's nothing for me to do in parliament. Male domination is there. So for me, is recognize us as women. Treat us as women with respect.
What a powerful story. It is amazing what you've gone through, and yet you have that indomitable spirit. You have that core of you that has been self-defining throughout these years. I like how you tell your story about the encounter with the journalist who comes looking for a maid or looking for a servant, and you insist you're not a maid, you're not a servant, you're a worker. And I think for me that's just powerful, because I do remember during my days in Kusatu, we had one lady who was organizing the domestic workers union, and well, at that stage they call it the Domestic Workers Association because domestic workers not being allowed to unionize, and they insisted on calling themselves domestic workers. And I just, that's a powerful spirit. It seems to me that you've always stood your ground. Tell us a bit about your mother and some of the women that may have served as your role models when you look back. Where did you get this sense that women can stand their ground?
Yeah, the one thing that I did not mention, that I forgot to tell you, is that in my life I got divorced and I had 3 children. My youngest one was 7, going in for 7. And when I got divorced with 3 children, I was a single mother, earning very little money. And I had to find ways of how will I make it. And one of the things that stood out also was when I became a single mom, the day when I went to the courtroom and I got divorced, and I went home, my eldest daughter said to me, we don't have any lights, electricity. It's cut off. And I think a couple of hours later, there was no water. Now, in my marriage life, my husband had to see to that part, and I see to the food. So here I'm sitting, I'm divorced. I have no lights, and I have no water. For the first time in my life, I've always been involved in the struggle for others. I had to go next door and ask my neighbor to borrow some water. And I had to light candles. Fine. 3 days later, I got a knock on the door, and a man came to the door and he said to me, "Do you know your husband is selling this house?" But before he said that, he first said you were in arrears with money. And you owe the council comes. Sorry, it was first the council come and tell me I'm in arrears and they're going to auction my house. Yeah, I'm sitting. I've got no water, no light, and I'm going to lose my house. And the little part that I forgot that stage, I worked for a few years in a factory because of having to move out of domestic work. But in the factory, I also was a shop steward fighting for workers in a factory. And my boss in a factory don't borrow money to anybody, not anybody, because there was 450 workers in that factory. And I was his personal person working for him, making his food and everything. And I went to him and I said to him, "This is my story." And he said to me, "Go to the wage clerk and then you tell the wage clerk she must give you a check." The wage clerk was shocked because it's the first time this happened in this factory. And he said the driver must take me and I must go pay everything. And that also was a breakthrough for me. There is a God high above because I asked God, "What now?" And I don't know if he sent me that message, go to your boss. And that is also one of the things that has pushed me in life. I survived that period. Being a single mother. I might not have been able to send my children to university, but I was able to let them finish. My eldest daughter did not really like studying. And she started getting out of school and she started looking after her siblings for me to go out there and provide for all of them. And up to today, my eldest daughter is still with me and still playing that role in my life. She's still there. And I think that is what also gives me that push to go forward and show me nothing is impossible if you only believe. And even that, and it's just after that period, I went back to the domestic workers and we start mobilizing and finding out that they've been looking for me to try and find me, that I need to come back to the house that I have started to build. And that's when we finished building this house until today.
Yes. And about your mom, tell us about some of the women leaders that have influenced your life, Myrtle.
Some of the union.
Women leaders that you worked with or that influenced your life.
In my life, there was a lot of people I admire, but it was 2 domestic workers. The one I mentioned before, her name was Maggie Uwis. She couldn't read and write, but she wanted to organize domestic workers really much. And when she met me, she said to me, "God has sent me to come and assist her also because she also wants to do something." And the strangest part of it, up to today, Maggie is also old. She still didn't go into read and write. Today, she's organizing the Khoi and the Sun and where we come from. My political influence was, I'm sure maybe you've heard about Florence de Villiers.
Mm.
She was also one of the founders, together with us, of this Domestic Workers Union. And she was working for the Christian Institute. That time they were very strong, the Christian Institute. There were white people speaking out for, the injustice and justice. And they invited me to come and speak there. And then I met this woman, Florence de Villiers. Never knew that she is going to have such a great impact on my life. But Florence de Villiers was a politician. And Florence de Villiers threw me in a hole. She told me, Myrtle, I want to take you to Lusaka. That time we just heard about politics. She took me to Lusaka. Only when we got there, she said, today I'm going to introduce you to Oliver Tambo. Oh my word, I was shocked. I said, what are you doing to me? She said to me, no, I'm going to introduce you. Why are we domestic workers? Why are we? And I will never forget Comrade Oliver Tambo's world and Comrade Mark and Kada, all of them. I'll never forget it. Myrtle, he gave me a thick document. He said, read through that document and read about everything. And then you must go back to South Africa. You must promise me. You're going to bring domestic workers together. You must promise me your mind is going to go out of Cape Town. Your mind is going to go worldwide. That time it was like to our provinces. And when I was sitting there in the ANC diners and hear the planes going over, I thought, oh my word, where am I? And that, coming out of that dance and coming back to South Africa, made me determined to just never to, and Florence de Villiers, she had this one thing when she started with the meeting. She said, John van Riebeeck, come to this South Africa to come and steal. And every meeting she opened, and later on I said, Florence, please, can we leave John van Riebeeck there by the castle where he is now? But that is the two women that has made such a big, especially Florence. She opened my mind wider to politics. That I got more involved in politics. That I wasn't afraid to be in the front of a march. I wasn't afraid to mow into employers' houses, get locked up, get thrown out again. That is the woman. She was also partly a domestic worker. And Maggie was a domestic worker. When she was 7 years old, those white people adopted her to make her a domestic worker. And for 29 years, she was just their domestic worker. But she had a powerful brain, and she listened to everything. And that was my role. Yes, political people along the way, and influence people. I listen to them, I read their books. But that two women on the ground, it's also what encouraged me to carry on. It's also what told me, go on. Sometimes we look at powerful women up there. If only I could be like them. If only I could speak like them. If only I could dress like them. It's not about that. It's about the struggle. It's about what do I want for women. One day they said to me, Myrtle, do you know you're a feminist? I said, excuse me, a feminist. And I realized their equality. Everything that I want in me, it is speaking and shouting as a feminist. Equality we want. When we formed this International Domestic Workers Federation, one man from Africa, he stood up and he said, Comrade Myrtle, you are from Africa. I want to tell you, you are never going to make it as a woman. You people will never make it because you are a woman. And women can't run organizations. I said, fine. He came back to me 2019, just before COVID. We had our second conference. I was re-elected. He said, sorry, comrade, You showed us. I said, not me, we, because we are united. We showed you, women can make it. We went from 350,000 women, and we are today at 575,000 women, migrant workers, rural workers, urban workers. We've got 21 organizations in Africa organizing domestic workers. Although I feel ashamed sometimes that in Africa we only got 3 ratifications, we haven't got more, but we are now planning the way forward. I've just been to Ghana to go and speak about ratification, go and speak about things like that. So what I want to say to you is ordinary woman, but my knowledge is also reading books if my knowledge is what I could have done. And I'm always learning something. I'm always learning something. I've also learned that if somebody comes with an idea in my organization, to try and see, can it work for us? Will it work for us? So every day there's a new story. Every day there's a new suffering. Every day women come in and they say, this is what's happening to us. This is what's happening to us in domestic service. And that is how we are building the organization, and that is how every day that person that come in or that person that will go out there from our office and come in with a bottle of Coke to say thank you to all of us for assisting me. Thank you for listening to us. That bottle of Coke is encouraging me. Look, was the light, maybe it was the last day that she went to buy this bottle of Coke, or she bought a packet of chips just to come say to you, we are appreciating all of you. And the struggle was not by Myrtle alone. The struggle was by domestic workers, many domestic workers, internationally.
Absolutely.
Yes, I was fortunate that they chose me as Tatsawu to lead the delegation in the ILO. But without the domestic workers with me, without the people behind me, I wouldn't be where I am today. And for that, I must always be grateful. And for that, I will always, say thank you for those people that are with me, that is still encouraging me to carry on. And they always have these people coming to your office to do research. And they go away with the research. They drain you physically and mentally. You ask them what happened to the research. It's only one woman in the struggle of us. And I'm sure you've heard of her, Professor Jennifer Fish. She is internationally a professor. She was the first, professor that was staying with us for 4 years in the domestic sector, wrote books about us and our struggle. And that is the people.
Right.
And of course, you're going to be on my list also now as being a person that has opened up to listen to domestic workers. And I hope that we will continue to be in contact with each other to strengthen. We can only go forward together.
Right. You have done amazingly despite these obstacles. And I was going to have a lot of questions, Myrtle, around your life, being a mother, being a wife, your early career, your middle career, and you've covered admirably all of that. What remains now in just maybe short answers so that I leave a little bit of room for the women leaders and friends to ask you questions. I'm going to ask you just quick questions. Maybe the first one is around, what does leadership mean to you? And has being a woman mattered in your leadership in these last 50 years? It's amazing, 50 years of leading.
Okay, what does leadership actually mean to me? When you find yourself, they say to you, you're a leader. But how can you be a leader if you are not having people that you are leading? So we have today leaders that's up there and they forgot where they come from and they're not leading that people that they're supposed to lead. So for me, leadership is about, yes, leading, But leadership is also about sharing. Leadership is about getting other domestic workers to teach them, to empower them, to speak up. It's to share what I have gained over the years and to share it with those workers. And although I sometimes find it very hard, because many domestic workers, they pull back. Many domestic workers say, oh, I thought leadership is just by you're going to speak and you're going to be a leader. But leadership is actually building that organization. It's actually looking at, what is it that we can do? Where do we stop? Where is the blockage? And where can we go further? But
Wow.
to do that, you need people to encourage you. You need people that wish you. And that is why I surround myself with women. I surround myself with workers. I never say no if somebody, like I wanted to say no to come on your show. Oh my God, this is going to be academics and I'm going to be lost. And the person from your side that invited me said, no, just be yourself. So I have proven over the years, leadership is about leading, but leading by example. And always exactly take, but we could have done this or we couldn't have done that. And that is how I see. And that is how I also see it has empowered me. I went lately into feminist meetings. And I sit into those meetings and I'm listening to how we speak as feminists, how we talk about, equality, how we speak. But let us come out of there and let us challenge those things that's standing in our way. We've been building lots of feminist people, lots of things. And all our meetings we go to, we talk and we talk and we come out there with resolutions. and that's
So for you, for you, leadership is about empowering others, and also it is about collaboration and taking action.
yes.
Tell us a little bit now about what keeps you going. You've been through a lot, from discovering that you were adopted at the age of 12, although you say it didn't impact on you, but maybe subconsciously did impact on you. And getting divorced, struggling to get yourself registered because it wasn't clear whether you are African, colored, or white, and losing 2 years of your life. So these have been lots of turbulences. What kept you going? What anchors you right now? Why do you still wake up fired up the way you are now and say, I'm off to fight another day for the dignity and decent work of domestic workers?
I think, let me be honest with you. South Africa, all the world, but mostly South Africa. South Africa got the best labor laws in the world for domestic workers, all fought by domestic workers themselves, not by political parties. We must make it very clear. But that labor laws is stuck into drawers. In our party years, they call it the white cabinet. Like I remember that years when we went that time to the manpower, this guy used to say to us, Myrtle, it's in a drawer, and if we feel we want to take out this laws, we'll take it out. Okay, stay there till 20 years later. So this labor laws that they're giving to us. And everybody starts shouting about, wow, domestic workers have now got a national minimum wage. Wow, they've got an unemployment. But when I look at what happened now with COVID-19, when I look at how that very labor laws has failed the domestic sector, and how this very new grant of 350 Rand is failing the domestic workers, that is what made me partway angry, partway determined, and partway to say the struggle is far from over for domestic workers. They are saying
So what keeps you going?
Yes, it keeps me going because domestic employees all of a sudden say, I can't afford to pay my domestic worker 23 Rand. Why not? You go to a Fushini and you buy you a boot of 500 Rand. So that is what keeps me going. It's every day. I have about 55 WhatsApp groups on my phone. So every morning, my job is to send a prayer to all my groups, and Africa. I said the president. Then they come back to me, and maybe there's somebody, Myrtle, I am stuck in Saudi Arabia. Myrtle, I'm that. Then he's ask you, are your struggle over? No, your struggle is not over. So
Wow.
when they ask me, why do you say women won't be free until domestic workers are free? I was saying until my employer treat me as another woman in that house where I'm working for. Treat me
Wow.
not just as, oh, ask Myrtle there, my worker, she's in the back there, or say, go ask Myrtle, she's somewhere around here, but not put a label to me. And once she can treat me as a woman, a mother, a wife, and we are equal. When I open the fridge, she's not asking me to close the fridge. Or I don't say to me on the one side is for you. Once we have that equality in the house where we're working, we are free.
Oh. Well, I didn't know those things, that there's a side for you and a side for the family. It's quite scary, some of the things that you said are part of the experience of being a domestic worker. So to look after your own mental well-being, you pray, you send prayers to the women in the group, and sometimes I would imagine that they also send their own kind of prayers in your direction. Do you do anything else to look after your own well-being, ma'am?
No, that's not, sometimes I ask myself, before COVID-19, we have this thing of, in Cape Town, we've got beautiful beaches, right? We take a drive and we go sit and we look at the waves, and as if the waves say something to me. And that also sometimes trigger a memory by me. That waves, many years ago when I was a domestic worker in Sea Point, the same people, you go to the beach and there's a big thing that say, swimming dangerous, domestic workers only. And, and that very spot today, I go back there and it's the pavilion, the Sea Point
Wow.
Pavilion. It's safe now. At that time, it was for domestic workers. So I went about 3 months ago. I went to a meeting where they were also asking me, and my daughter made a statement in this meeting. My daughter said she doesn't know about self-care. She doesn't know about looking after herself. My daughter said, this woman, and she was not saying mother, she said, this woman, she just go. And I was saying to myself that day, I want to, this year, I've got 3 fantastic grandchildren. 2 of them are staying in Holland. They are staying in Holland. I haven't seen them for 2.5 years. And I'm saying to myself, I just want to, my first opportunity this year, I just want to get to Holland. I just want to keep them tight to my heart and just embrace them. I've got a 1 year, my little daughter staying here with me, but I just want to have, and I asked my grandchild yesterday, you are now going in for 16. Are you still going to hug Granny? He answered me this morning, Granny, hugs and hugs and hugs.
That's beautiful.
That's what
Beautiful.
I need. And also what I get from domestic workers. In the meetings, like a week ago, I had a meeting, 2 weeks ago, a meeting, and I was talking. And some of them just come up to me and they just hug me. And they say to me, every morning, we send up a silent prayer for you, Myrtle, Comrade Myrtle. We are asking God to please keep you going. And I think that is what keeps me going, Thuli. It is that the domestic workers still have that trust to work with me. And for me, it is that I still have something to give back to them. And as long, internationally the same, as long as we can be united, and as long as we can educate and mobilize domestic workers, I think we're going to become so powerful as women. And we're going to tell that women in the kitchen, okay, let's sit down, and let us have a nice family chat. And I think this is what keeps me going, is the encouragement of those that I'm working with internationally and South Africa. They always encourage me, and they always, And when I get invited to talks, they always say to me, keep going. But only
Wow.
also by the grace of God, I'm still able to do it. And I can never give praise to him enough for giving me this health and to carry on with this fight. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So making a difference, being anchored in God, being a granny, hugs, and just these circles of life. Well, at this stage, I am going to now allow women leaders and friends in the room to ask questions, because some of my questions have already been answered, including the book that you would like us to read. You mentioned a book. Could you repeat the name of that book?
Yes, I'm fine.
The one that you've written with other domestic workers about giving birth to a nation.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll come back to that book when you give us part course at the end of this session. But for now, I think all of my own questions have been covered. I was very grateful that you gave us a very vivid picture of how domestic workers struggled with the fact that services were online. And these are two things that at Stellenbosch University we've dealt with as part of our legislating for all, or tailored for all, tailoring laws for all instead of tailoring laws for some and then letting others fall through the cracks. And you gave us a vivid picture of two things: making the services of online. A lot of your constituency members could not access these services. And then secondly, this thing of saying that only employers that were registered with UIF and all of those things could access this. Now you're punishing workers for the sins of employers. And then those who can't then fall in because their employers didn't do the right thing, then go to the 350 Rand. Can you imagine a drop in the standard of living between the salary you're earning and what you get? And yet these packages were not meant to be a reward for being a good employer or being a good citizen. They were a compensation for the fact that together we took one for all. We all stayed at home so that COVID-19 could not spread. But thank you so much for sharing those experiences. I do think that is something that as Stellenbosch University, we will use as part of our data to say when you have to legislate in future, please tailor it for all. Because if you use a one-size-fits-all approach, a lot of those who live in the margins just fall through the cracks. Shumane wants to ask a question. You take the floor, ma'am, or say, I'm not quite sure which sex is it.
No, good afternoon. It's actually, I'm using my son's laptop because mine decided. So my name is Juliet Miabo. I'm the CEO of the Soweto CSI Council. So I'm a he, she, her. Yes, I am totally inspired and grateful for this session. Firstly, Professor Madonsela, my daughter, would be excited to know that I'm talking to you here because she loves you to bits. She's an economist, graduate from UCT. Okay. And I am totally in awe to Lady Myrtle. Sure. You know, in all the work that I do, and I also talk on a few global and international and local platforms, I always mention and talk about my grandmother. My grandmother was a domestic worker. So a lot of the things that you speak of, I totally identify with. I was also raised by aunts who were domestic workers. So I come from a family of domestic workers. I mean, I'm where I am. I mean, I got educated. Well, the first book that I could buy for myself at UCT came from the money that my grandmother saved up. I remember it was about 50 rands, and it took me a whole term to finally be able to buy that book. And I still have that book. I still keep it. I'm 50 years old, but I still have that book because I know what it took for her to save from her salary of, I think she used to get about 54 rands a month. And she was able to save up to finally help me get that. So for me, this is, it's educational, but it also quite emotional. And I work with women, I work with communities, and I work with children, and everything that I do is inspired by Mama. I've always called my grandmother Mama. Is inspired by Mama, and she was quite active with Mama Winnie Mandela because we lived just down the road from her house in Orlando West. So she was quite active initially secretly in the Women's League. So even my political views or my political consciousness also came from her, because she used to take me to all the rallies in Soweto. I mean, I always tell people how I've ducked and dived rubber bullets and tear gas and everything from the age of, literally from the age of 6, because she had no one else to, she was my main caregiver. But let me go before I do my own speech here, but let me just go to a few things that I need to maybe pose as questions. One of the things that I see, because I'm quite involved with women, there's an organization I'm part of that I founded, it's called Imbogoto or Mandla. One of the biggest challenges that we see is that a lot of the women who are domestic workers have been replaced by, I'm talking about South Africa particularly, by unregistered domestic workers. What has happened is most white South Africans, mostly, I think also some Black South Africans, opt to take unregistered domestic workers in order to avoid registration, paying UIF, so we have two situations, loss of employment, and also we have unregistered and unprotected foreign nationals who are domestic workers. So it's two things. And then the other one is the issue of domestic workers have become very young and are becoming young because of the high rate of unemployment in our country. So that means the only option that a lot of matriculants, young people who could not go anywhere else, have no choice but to become domestic workers. How do we address the issue of providing skills to those young people who then now become domestic workers, but need still or have an opportunity to move up? My last one, it's the last one for the respect of time. It's not my last one, but for the respect of time, it's my last one, is I believe in psychosocial support in everything that I do, whether with children, the elderly. I mean, I have elderly people who are sitting, because I spend time and I talk to the elderly. That's where I get my inspirations from. That a lot of them are sitting with pain of things that they suffered when they were growing up, even things that they suffered when they were domestic workers. Whether it's some kid kicking them, some boss spitting at them, someone grabbing their bum. There are various stories. Some of them are mild, some of them are worse. But the issue of psychosocial support is very critical. And I'm saying that, can we look at how we include that as part of the work that you do? Because I am talking to people about that. I see that a lot of people are dying with a lot of pain. So if we can do that issue of psychosocial support, and also to deal with the isolation, you have to deal with isolation from your family, from your children, from your grandchildren, and a lot of people, domestic workers, face that. How do we help in terms of psychosocial support, and how can I also be part of a program to help with that particular area? Sorry if that was too long. My name is Juliet Miabo. I'm the head of Soweto CSI Council. Thank you.
Wow, Juliet, sorry.
Yes, I'm here.
That was really fantastic. Over to you, Myrtle Witbooi.
Yeah.
Perhaps let's just respond to the questions, but thank you for your entire comment. It was just spot on. And I like the fact that you, like our amazing guest here, are not just raising concerns, but you're beginning to look at solutions. For example, Myrtle has already been helping domestic workers with digital skills so that it can push back against some of the isolation. But you're saying, how about psychological support as well? Okay, ma'am, over to you.
I
What's your
think that-
response to this?
Yeah, I think the questions asked is very relevant to today's struggle about the unemployment and what do we do for domestic workers and all those things. I think especially now that we have the Compensation Act and we have the new minimum wage, if we take an example of what happened with Swipsat, and we look at Swipsat was providing jobs for domestic workers, but when we look at the reality of what happened, is yes, they were providing jobs, but it was like jobs that in the end, it didn't give much protection to domestic workers. So what are we doing now? We are busy with also developing a podcast. We are busy with developing something on the COIDA, and it will be on WhatsApp available for domestic workers and for employers, and where we are trying to make it to simplify the COIDA, to simplify the wages and everything for domestic workers, so that domestic workers and employers can understand what is there and how they are protected. Also, what we are doing, we are now training leadership domestic workers in different provinces on how to set up groups and how to educate other domestic workers. And then we also have signed a legal agreement now with the Department of Labor to start going around with inspectors and do door-to-door visiting at houses to see if it's going to be a long task, but to see if domestic workers are registered, if they're registered to COIDA, if they're getting the national minimum wage, and if everything is okay. So this is what we're busy with. We are constantly looking also now at our own type of platform to develop a platform for domestic workers in the next year or so, where domestic workers will have access to this platform to actually, have the creation of jobs, and where domestic workers can also now lodge for jobs and things like that. But we have to learn from previous experience that we don't want to exploit domestic workers, that they won't be involved in benefits, and that they won't be protected by the labor laws. So at the moment, this is what we're doing for domestic workers. And also we are constantly assisting domestic workers with unfair dismissals, and we assist them at the CCMA, we fill in forms. We're also assisting domestic workers to fill in forms and go to the Department of Labor. Sometimes we also go with the domestic workers to the Department of Labor to see how we can assist domestic workers. And what we also have very short term is that we sometimes make available data for a domestic worker and help her to assist her to fill in the form of how to claim for unemployment benefit. So the one side of the union is that domestic workers are assisted, domestic workers get the help, and the other part is with the Department of Labor, to get the Department of Labor to have more, like they call it imbisos in countries, to talk to employers and to talk to domestic workers. And also the last is how do I get this to the domestic workers in their own language? So constantly, the union has now been engaging with a business of 50,000 employers, but I will see how far that will get. But we are constantly trying to do our best to assist domestic workers.
Thank you, ma'am. Just two questions from Juliet that maybe we could answer with with quick answers. The one is, what is to be done with employers that choose to only employ undocumented immigrants because they're avoiding UIF, COIDA, and everything else? That's number one. The second question from Juliet is that, are you open for collaboration with her? She's in Soweto, she's the president of the CSI movement today, and she would like to see maybe collaboration could make sure that every domestic worker is reached and every domestic worker knows about COIDA, UIF, and just generally about their right to dignity and social justice as as required in terms of the ILO conventions and our marvelous labor laws.
Yes. I just also want to mention, yes, we work with undocumented domestic workers. We work with many migrant workers. We even have migrant workers on our committees, yeah, in our provinces. And generally speaking, we are now also in agreement with the migrant workers union to actually take all the domestic migrant workers from them, to actually enroll them with Tatsau, yeah, to enroll them with Tatsau, and so that we can educate them. And also, at one stage, we also traveled to Zimbabwe, to the border, to go and see what happened when a domestic worker come into the country. And the department, and we brought out a little booklet, but we noticed that the booklet has now been stopped since COVID-19, of telling the domestic worker what you must do when you enter the country, telling them there's a union, telling them where they must go. But we are also very concerned what is happening now lately again, because many of our migrant workers are phoning us now. They are getting scared now again, especially in Johannesburg and Durban, of what is happening now with, and they feel they're affected. But we must also say we have some good employers that when such things happen, they say, we'll keep our workers at our workplaces, we'll try to keep our workers safe. So not all employers are bad. There is some good employers. So we are working together on this. And we also have an open door where employers come to our offices, and employers sit down with us. And we also find sometimes that employers prefer to phone us instead of phoning the Department of Labor, because they say they must hold on, and by us they get. So our organizers are trained on how to handle employers and how to handle. So we have that, all of that, available. We haven't got enough organizers, but those that we have, it actually comes from the domestic workforce and has been trained how to deal with domestic workers.
Thank you, ma'am. Bongiwe, you are going to have the last word. Bongiwe.
Thank you, Prof. I must say that.
Yes.
Thank you, Prof, for the platform. I must say I'm really excited and also very surprised at the same time that there's been a movement such as this. I've been at my very, very, very first job was a domestic worker when I was still doing standard 9 and matric. And I think my biggest problem then was the language barrier. I would, fortunately, I had an employer that was very fair and really willing to assist me because I was young and driven and so beyond domestic work. But I'm thinking, how do we help bridge the gap in terms of language barrier? Because I remember when I would go to work, I would only hear my employer saying fridge. And I didn't know whether he meant or she meant that I should clean the fridge or I should eat something that's in the fridge and my salary would be stuck on the fridge, or I should take the money on the fridge. But then to be safe, I would then do all the three. I would clean the fridge, eat whatever I'm able to eat from the fridge, and then take my money. So first thing is, how do we empower those young and even old domestic workers that are out there that have issues of language barrier? Because there's a lot of domestic workers that would not understand when a child, say, for example, if you are a black domestic worker, you're working for a white boss. If a child says, I'm starving, you don't know what that child says. You will be, the language barrier, that's one. And secondly, what is the coverage? How do other domestic workers get awareness of this? Because I'm thinking maybe for those that work in Sea Point or that work in Claremont or these suburb areas would probably know and benefit from this. And if the employers are honest enough, would register them and empower them. But those that work for the Black community sometimes get exploited. So how does one get to make others aware, even people that work in Midrand, for example, for a Black family, as opposed for someone who works in Sea Point, for example? Thank you.
Thank you. Those were very pertinent questions. How do we expand the reach of your organization, or who do you collaborate with to make sure that every domestic worker is covered? And secondly, how do we assist with bridging the language gap?
I think that, like I said, we are few people within in the domestic sector. We are not, and there is more than 1 million domestic workers in South Africa. But I think that the one thing that we do is we constantly have pamphlet distribution at bus stops, and we might not reach all areas on that. But I think that for domestic workers, maybe if they contact us, maybe if they send us information of where they are and what area they are, it's for us to take it up. It doesn't matter. It's not about becoming a member of SATSAU. It's being a domestic worker and you're needing a system. And if you feel after the assistance, yes, you want to be part of this group, that's fine. But we don't refuse anybody to assist them. Like now we are assisting domestic workers that's never been registered. That is, they have to reapply for registration and also getting in contact with employers. So that is our role. Our role is to empower domestic workers. So it's any domestic worker that is even listening to that or hearing about us, contact us. We are sure to assist you. We don't say no. It doesn't matter where you're from. Even if
Fantastic.
Yes, I will get in contact with you and I will assist you in your problems that you have. I'll try my best.
Fantastic. Mbusabantu, I forgot to ask if there are any questions from the platform. Otherwise, Bongiwe Nkitika would be our last question. Do we have a pressing question that hasn't been answered, Mbuso?
Most of them have been answered, but there are two which I think have not been answered. So I'll ask. The first is, what is currently being done by your organizations or other organizations like yours to improve the literacy rates amongst domestic workers? And said, what is the kind of support and acceptance that you'd be looking for from members of civil society and business? What does acceptance look like to you? I think that's based on earlier on, you said you're looking for domestic workers to be accepted. So the question is, what should civil society and business be doing? What does acceptance look like exactly?
Thank you, Mbusobant. Over to you, ma'am. Myrtle?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, that need to be go deep in. I think maybe if we make my contact available to them and then
yes,
they sort of contact me, I will respond to the questions and assist them and give them the whatever must be done.
The response. The quick ones that maybe if you do have an answer would be, do you have a literacy program? A program to, for example, you spoke about the lady who was an exceptional leader but couldn't read her letter and you assisted her. Is there a program under your union or under any of the trade unions to educate or to improve the literacy rates among domestic workers?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I think we should end here. And I think our guest has suggested that the best approach would be we can engage her bilaterally online on some of these questions, like literacy rates, literacy programs, if there are any. And at this stage, I just want to thank you very sincerely, Miss Myrtle Witbooi, for the amazing work you've been doing to humanize domestic workers, to ensure that they too become beneficiaries of all of the ILO conventions that have sought to advance social justice in the workplace, but in particular to ensure that Convention 189 has meaning for every domestic worker and that their lived experience is one of dignity and decent work. we really appreciate you taking time to come and give us some directions on leading with impact, because you certainly have led with impact. We can see where domestic workers were 50 years ago and where domestic workers are today. Of course, the struggle still continues. We are now at the point, ma'am, where we just need you to give us a few words for the journey, and that's what we call part course. Just a few parting shots that we call part course, and any book that you think women leaders should read to up their game. Over to you for the part course.
Professor?
Yes.
So to follow protocol before the closure of, because the part course has to be last, can I just show this picture in honor of the work that that Mrs. Myrtle has been doing? I don't know if you're able to see it. Okay, this side. That is
I
me.
can.
Yes.
Yes,
that is
ma'am.
me and my grandmother, who supported me, helped me, prayed for me, and was everything to me with just her job as a domestic worker. And that was me graduating. So this is in honor of all the work that you've done and that you continue to do. It's all been worth it. Thank you.
Great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, ma'am.
I also want to encourage you to try and get this book, Labor Pains for the Nation. It is available at the Human Rights Media Center in Cape Town, and you read through it, and you will read about 8 women that never got recognition, but it was determined to push the women issues on the agenda.
That's fantastic. Then give us, ma'am, you've given us the book already. That is Labor Pains for the Nation, Women Leaders. That goes into our collection. Then your final words, ma'am, as particles for our journey. Over to you.
That's it. Thank you.
Ma'am, she was saying if you could give us your closing remarks, your patkos, just after everything you've said, what is the one thing you want to leave all the women ready to lead with? I think we may be having a sound problem.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Yes. Thank you. And I think I'm also very grateful for that opportunity today. And I hope that people will have a different outlook looking at us. And congratulations to the domestic worker that made it. There is so many domestic workers that got that in them. And I hope that they will at times remember and bring something back to the other domestic workers to encourage domestic workers. Nothing is impossible. That we can get where we want to get. I'm maybe sorry that I didn't go for an academic degree, but I'm thankful that I can still read the domestic workers out there and be, to tell them nothing is lost, we are strong and we will make it in this world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Myrtle. That was Myrtle Witbooi, who is the president of the International Federation.
And we're also going to knock on your door now.
Of the International Federation of the. Right. Thank you, women leaders and friends. That was Madam.
Yeah, I was just saying that I'm going to keep you on your toes now, and I'm hoping that this will lead to other women taking an interest in their work and in professional women appreciate their domestic worker much more, and also assist us in this new COVID-19 world that we're in, and where domestic workers sometimes have lost with the new technology and things like that. We're looking forward to work together and forward to building a strong domestic workers organization in the world and South Africa. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
It's been an amazing privilege, and thank you, ma'am, for what you've done for domestic workers, and also for reminding us that if professional women do not recognize the humanity of domestic workers, we are undermining the cause of women as a whole. And if some of us are still not free, if some of us are still being dehumanized by us, then none of us can be free. And thank you for what you do for humanity. This has been rewarding and insightful indeed. And yes, if there's anything that we can do as the Thuli Madonsela Foundation or Stellenbosch University, we would gladly do. There was also an offer there from Juliet from the CSI grouping that they could chip in and help where they can. And Bongi Wimkitika reminding us of where she has come from with the help of a domestic worker in the family, and also that she herself had to do some of that kind of work. It's been an amazing, rewarding, and extremely insightful session. And for that, we are grateful to you, ma'am. Myrtle Witbooi.
Thank you so much.
To the THUMA team
Yeah,
that
and
produces this.
Yeah, you can
Thank
make my
you.
number available to people if they would like to contact me. And if they would like to get in contact with me, you can make my email available. I will respond to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And to the THUMA team, Busabantu is show producer, assisted by Mandisa Shiba. Thank you for your work, and thank you for finding this amazing diamond that has stood the test of time. And thank you to Thuli Madonsela, who leads the team, and everyone else that supports Thuli. But above everyone else, we thank our guest and we thank you, the audience, here in this Zoom room and on our social pages, such as Facebook. We meet again on Sunday on Women Ready to Lead 2030, where we say, Indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. Thank you.
Kwabaphambili.
Blessings.
Thank you.